Prophetic synthetics is a very important trend that everyone needs to be well aware of. So we have seen synthetics absolutely overtake often real things in many, many industries. And so in food, now we've had synthetic sweeteners and so forth for a while, but over recent years we saw pea-based proteins coming in as a sort of artificial meat. So with the Beyond Group and a number of others, that business was $4.3 billion last year. It's growing massively. And many of the large hamburger chains have actually made available pea-based meat patties, because that's actually the large, it's the market that many of those organisations are really targeted at, because they do consume a lot of beef. So we've seen pea-based proteins, but now what we're seeing is meat that is grown in the lab, and that is coming along very fast indeed. And so there's many companies that are engaged in it, and you can expect to see lab-grown meat. Probably will start in, oddly enough, high-end restaurants earlier, and then it will come to mainstream. But so we are definitely seeing our food will become significantly synthetic. And interestingly, Japan just recently outlawed the words synthetic and artificial in food labelling because they found that it was stopping people from buying the food. So very interesting. If we are not, in fact, able to understand the background from the food, how do we know what's real and what's not? In terms of what's real and what's not, influencers. So obviously we've got the Kardashians, a bit difficult to know what's real and what's not about those folks, but it's gone one step beyond now. So this is Little Markella, and so she is one of the world's leading influencers, social media influencers. She has 1.6 million followers on Instagram. She's done a number of fashion commercials for the likes of Prada and Louis Vuitton. She released a single just recently. She is super, super successful. And there's a number of these synthetic influencers out there. She's not real. She's a created individual. But people are following her, people are listening to her. And in fact, it's interesting, the organisation behind her, it's very difficult to get any information about exactly who they are as well. So we're seeing synthetic people, synthetic voice, very important thing to be aware of. In fact, just a couple of months ago, a CEO at a big American organisation was duped by synthetic voice, which he thought was coming from one of his senior finance people, but it was in fact a synthetic voice, and it was he authorised the transfer of $250,000. So lots of issues around how we can replicate what's happening with humans, and obviously virtual reality, the goggles and so forth, that's getting much, much better than it has been. Also virtual dogs in this case. So Boston Dynamics, you may be familiar with their robot Atlas, who does the backflips and so forth, really quite remarkable. This is Spot. So Atlas is not available. You can't buy Atlas, but you can buy Spot. So Spot was just recently released. It's on the market. It's a $75,000 robot dog. It's a lot of money, I guess, $75,000, but given the way cavoodles are being priced these days, your average cavoodle's going for $9,000, so you could get Spot for a little more than that, and not quite as fluffy and cuddly, of course, but Spot is remarkable in that it is able to, it's been used on mine sites, it's been used actually as triage in COVID-19 testing centres and so forth, and also being used for bomb disposal and things of that nature, and also in security. So we can expect to see robots, so artificial entities, coming into our environment very quickly. And then the world around us can be mimicked in digital. And so in New South Wales, we have the New South Wales government's Spatial Digital Twin. And what this is it's an analysis of the entire of Sydney rendered in digital. So it's rendered in 4D, interestingly, and so 4D is 3D plus time. And so you can look at how Sydney moves over time, and you can look at above ground and below ground, because obviously there's a lot of infrastructure, pipes, electricity, etc., travelling below ground. And New South Wales is a world leader in this. The Western Sydney Spatial Digital Twin is in fact one of the largest digital twins in the world. And the relevance of this is that if you are planning something, if you're building a building and you want to see how that building will impact the surrounding environment, shade, etc., you can use the spatial digital twin. And also for policymakers to see what would happen if we increase this amount of transport to this particular area, etc. So this is an incredibly valuable asset, an entire city rendered completely digitally. So where does this all end? So if you ask Elon Musk, he believes that we're most likely living in a simulation. So there's a strong movement amongst physicists and a whole range of people, not just people at the fringes, frankly, of society, who say that, you know what, maybe we are actually living in some sort of simulation, that some sort of advanced intelligence has created us. And we're actually living in a game. Elon Musk, he probably has figured out the secret to this particular game, because he is the world's most richest man and has figured out a way to revolutionise several industries. And it's not just Elon Musk. The sort of very successful, sort of popular physicist Neil deGrasse Tyson says, I give it better than 50-50 that we're living in a sim. So it's a challenging notion that we in fact may be living in a simulated environment, but it is worth thinking about that, because you may see as a little bit more of that talk in next time. And how do we know? Well, we don't know unless we find the glitch. So keep an eye out. If you do see a glitch, it could be proof that we're living in a sim.